you, Patrick, thank you. Thank you for your lack of self-control, because it's allowed me to expose you to the nation as you truly are. A selfish, corrupt, bigoted little coward of a man and a traitor to this community. And you, Chris. It's clear to everyone here that you're nothing more than a fluffer. Your entire position could be easily replaced by a pair of red and green lights with Patrick holding the activation button in his tiny little hands. You're literally worthless to Shasta County because your only purpose is to give Patrick Jones a second vote, and everyone damn well knows it.
Remember Nathan Blaze of Shasta County?
Real quick, I'd like to remind everyone that I have a First Amendment right and that this board failed to pass a code of conduct. So with that being said, I'm going to try that in a small town. Patrick Henry Jones, the most dangerous man in Shasta County. Through a campaign of disinformation, intimidation, and blatant lies, Patrick has risen to one of the most powerful positions in the county. He preys on the fears of his uneducated constituents through grandstanding and bad faith arguments. Patrick is a bully. He has used his seat to intimidate and harass many citizens of Shasta County. He even blackmailed a former county employee who then quit. If he is reelected in 2024, he will continue to burn Shasta County to the ground for his own personal gain.
The man who speaks truth to power? I decided to hear from the man himself on what is wrong with the place he calls home. What is happening to your county?
Oh, man. 3 fascist MAGA dudes are trying to destroy everything. What are the authorities going to find on their phones or in their emails? Maybe that's why you, Kevin, decided to cancel your trip to the upcoming election fraud conspiracy seminar. By the way, as you all just saw on the flyer for that event, Kevin Cry and Rudy Giuliani are prominently featured. After Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and Mike Lindell are behind bars for being the traitors that they are, will you 3 be next?
Did they, correct me if I'm wrong, say that they don't believe in the voting machines?
Yes, so we have a Shasta County Board of Supervisors, and there's 5 members of the board. 3 of them, because you only need a majority to pass a decision, 3 of them passed a vote to have our Dominion electronic voting systems removed from Shasta County before putting in another viable election system. Thanks to politicians with much more integrity than these 3 have, at least Shasta County's election systems are safe now. After my speech at the last meeting, which I'm sure you had to Google 90% of, you, Patrick, said, "Thank you, Nathan, for nothing." Well, that nothing has over 1.6 million views, and that's because I am by far not the only one who hates you for what you're attempting to not only do to this county, but this country as well. Around 2020 is when I started attending the Shasta County board meetings. That was around the time where a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff were happening, and I had actually organized a 500-plus person peaceful march in our hometown. What I saw, the response from the community was just, it was appalling. I didn't realize I lived that close to so many racist people. And so I went to one of the board meetings to speak out about it. And Patrick Jones, from the dais, he's one of the supervisors, I asked him a very valid question, and he responded by publicly calling me a domestic terrorist and saying that I had participated in the Seattle riots, which I never did, and I'm not. And so that was his initial thing he ever said to me. And so from then on, I was just like, yeah, this guy's got to go.
To be honest, I would put my health in John Knight's hands over Donnell Ewart's any day of the week.
The board majority right now is Patrick Jones, Chris Kellstrom, and Kevin Cry. They are the type of people that voted down a resolution for a Pride Month in Shasta County. No reason to vote it down. It doesn't affect any policy, but they do these type of things to grandstand to their also bigoted base, and they will just do anything. They are not, especially Patrick Jones, he is not representing even half the people of Shasta County. It's this very loud, small, fringe, far right-wing group of people that he communicates with regularly, and he seems to do everything that they want to do.
And I'm telling you straight up, I'm not a fool. I'm not a and I want...
Wow.
That's right.
Shut the hell up. Shut up.
Make me.
Shut the hell up.
We'd also discuss when this dude, Alex Bielecki, used the N-word during a hearing.
I happened to be there. I was actually the only person of color in the room, and I got mad. It made me mad, as as that word should. Mm-hmm. And I yelled at the guy. I told him to shut up, told him to leave. And then Patrick Jones targeted me and yelled at me instead of saying anything to the guy who actually said the N-word. And so I got up and I left. I took a break. I walked outside, got some fresh air, calmed down, went back in and sat there for another 20 minutes. And then public comment was over. And then our two good supervisors, Tim Garman and Mary Rickert, they made a point to state publicly to the crowd that they do not condone that type of language, that it should not be used, and that it was very inappropriate, which was excellent. And at that point, Patrick Jones could have just gone on to the next agenda item, but he decided to chime in and use the First Amendment of the Constitution to say how the guy who said the N-word was allowed to do so. And then he says, but what we won't tolerate is disruption in the meeting. And so that's when I yelled at Patrick Jones. I was like, what? What are you saying? Like, what is wrong with you? And then he's warning me, telling me to be quiet. And then I'm like, I'm not going to be quiet. This is ridiculous. This is so racist and so ridiculous. And then he asks the sheriffs to escort me out of the building. And so the sheriffs actually refused. The sheriff told Patrick Jones, well, he's not breaking any laws and, we don't work for you, basically. And so then he asked the security guards to escort me out. And they do actually work for Patrick. So I got up and I left because I didn't want to have some sort of weird physical altercation or anything like that. So that was the first time that Patrick Jones, tried to kick me out of the board chambers.
In addition, I asked him about Jones's ascension.
This guy, Reverge Anselmo, he used to own a vineyard up here in Shasta County. It was called Anselmo Vineyards. This was about 10 years ago, a bit more. And he wanted to do some development on his property. And the city said no. They red tagged his building and they said no. So he tried to, I believe, sue the city, and then he lost that. And then so he just had this grudge against, certain people of the county for a very long time. And one of those people was a man named Leonard Modi, who was part of that decision all those years ago. And so then I believe what happened is Reverge Anselmo connected with Patrick Jones, and I found out that the reason they know each other is because Patrick Jones owns a gun shop called Jones Fort, and Reverge Anselmo was a customer. So that's how they connected. And then they must have had some sort of conversation, and Reverge backed Patrick Jones to make it to the Board of Supervisors. And so he just dumped a ton of money. At this point, Reverge Anselmo has dumped over $1 million into those politicians in this county.
What is your final message here?
To anyone in any counties where, even at the local level, there's so much attention to national politics and whatever, Donald Trump's doing or the House of Representatives or stuff like that. But all of that, it starts at the local level. So if you live in a county and you have, a board of supervisors that is acting in a similar way, go speak out, go to the meetings, do it continuously, do it relentlessly, and show no fear. That's what I would say to people.